Choosing Freedom by Anne Rossi. Great Britain and the Colonies in 1763. When the French and Indian War ended in 1763, Great Britain had won most of France's North American territories. King George III of Great Britain now had the time to govern the colonies more closely. However, new ideas would make it difficult for him to control his colonies. People were beginning to talk and write about the rights of the individual. Among the freedoms and rights talked about were the right to own property and the right to participate in government. In the 13 colonies, people enjoyed many rights and freedoms. When Great Britain's Parliament and King began passing new laws, many colonists felt that their rights and freedoms were being threatened. Taxing the colonies. After the war with France, Great Britain owed a lot of money. Many British leaders felt that the American colonies should help pay these debts. In 1764, the British government began passing laws that they hoped would increase revenues, or money coming in from the American colonies. The first law was the Revenue Act of 1764, also called the Sugar Act. It set taxes on sugar from French and Dutch traders. The taxes angered many colonists. They wanted sugar that cost less. The following year, the British passed the Stamp Act. This required colonists to pay a tax on business and legal papers. The colonists were angry, and many refused to pay. Representatives from several colonies met in New York to speak out against the Stamp Act. They believed that only their elected representatives could tax them, but they had no representatives in Parliament, so Parliament should not tax the colonies. They said that ignoring their rights was tyranny, or the cruel or unfair use of power. When colonists stopped buying British goods, it hurt British businesses. The Stamp Act was repealed or cancelled in 1766, but another law was passed that said that Parliament could make laws for the colonies. Parliament also passed the Quartering Act in 1765. This law required colonists to provide food, drink, housing, coal or firewood, and candles to troops in their towns. Colonists often provided fewer supplies than the soldiers needed. The New York Assembly refused to assist with quartering British troops. In 1767, Britain passed laws called the Townshend Acts. One of these laws said that the New York Assembly could not do business until it obeyed the Quartering Act. Another law created tariffs or taxes on many imported goods. In 1768, soldiers were sent to Boston to make people obey the Townshend Acts. Angry colonists organized boycotts of British goods. On March 5, 1770, the British Parliament agreed to repeal some of the taxes. However, it did not repeal the tax on tea. Violence in Boston. The people of Boston were not happy that Great Britain had sent more soldiers to their town. Fistfights became common between soldiers and colonists. On March 5, 1770, an unfriendly crowd surrounded a group of British soldiers. Some people who were there said that people began yelling at the soldiers and throwing things at them. The soldiers fired into the crowd. 3 people were killed and 2 more died later. Patriots called the incident a massacre, or the needless killing of a large number of people. The Patriots called the incident the Boston Massacre. They used stories of the event to stir up anti-British feelings among the colonists. Samuel Adams, a Patriot leader, thought that using soldiers to make people obey the Townshend Acts was wrong. He said that the Boston Massacre was a battle for American liberty. The British soldiers were put on trial. John Adams, a cousin of Samuel Adams, defended them. Adams said that the crowd had started the fight with the soldiers, so the soldiers were innocent of murder. 2 of the soldiers were found guilty of manslaughter, which meant they had not planned on killing anyone. After the Boston Massacre. The British troops left Boston shortly after the Boston Massacre. In 1772, Samuel Adams and other Boston leaders formed a committee of correspondence. Members sent correspondence or letters to other communities. These letters kept people informed of events and helped unite the colonies. Samuel Adams also organized people against the Tea Act, a law that made it easier for the East India Company to sell tea to the colonies. The East India Company did not have to pay high taxes, so their tea prices were the lowest available. In spite of the lower price, the colonists would not buy the tea. Merchants in most cities canceled tea orders. However, the governor of Boston said that 3 ships waiting in the harbor should unload their tea, and they should be paid for it. On the night of December 16, 1773, a group of about 60 patriots, disguised as Mohawks, boarded the ships and dumped the tea into the harbor. Some colonists collected samples of tea as souvenirs. The colonies moved toward war. Parliament passed several laws in 1774 to punish the Patriots for the Boston Tea Party. Colonists called these laws the Intolerable Acts, because they were intolerable or unbearable. The port of Boston was closed, some town meetings were banned, and British soldiers returned. In September 1774, representatives from every colony except Georgia gathered in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress. They voted to stop trade with Britain until the Intolerable Acts were repealed. They also agreed to make each colony's militia stronger. In February 1775, Britain announced that Massachusetts was in open rebellion. 2 months later, General Gage received secret orders to arrest leaders of the rebellion, including Samuel Adams. The Patriot leaders escaped to Lexington. On April 18, 1775, Patriots in Boston learned that British soldiers were planning a nighttime march to Lexington to search for the Patriot leaders, and then to Concord to destroy Patriot supplies. They knew that the militia must be warned. At 11 p.m., Paul Revere rode from Boston to warn militias and leaders that the British were coming. William Dawes and Samuel Prescott also helped warn the colonists. The 3 riders reached Lexington, but Revere and Dawes were stopped as they left. Only Prescott reached Concord. Minutemen were ready when the British arrived in Lexington. The next day, fighting began between British soldiers and American patriots in Lexington, Massachusetts. No one knows who fired the first shot, but it marked the beginning of the Revolutionary War in North America. The shot heard round the world. In 1836, Ralph Waldo Emerson, an American writer, wrote about these events. He called the first shot fired at Lexington the shot heard round the world. The Patriots' success in gaining independence inspired people in many other lands to fight for the independence of their own countries.